Welcome back to Throttles and Bottles, a show about rides, risks, and the people bold enough to do both. I'm your host, Brad Miller, and I'm joined today by Dr. Carl Price. Carl is the Chief Medical Officer for MotoAmerica, which means when things go wrong on a race weekend, he's one of the people riders trust most to make the right call. But what makes Carl different is that he's not just a doctor standing on the outside of the sport looking in. He's also a racer himself, which means he understands motorcycle racing from both sides, the medical side and the side that still wants to get back on the bike no matter what just happened. He spent decades in medicine, built a long career as a surgeon, and at the same time stayed deeply connected to racing in the paddock. So this felt like a really interesting conversation to have, especially sitting here in a suite overlooking Laguna Seca, one of the most iconic tracks in America. And this weekend is Battle of the Baggers here, which I'm looking forward to.
And also superbikes.
And also superbikes. I know I'm a cruiser guy, Indian guy, but I'm biased a little bit. But
sure.
I'm super excited for this weekend. But pour yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with surgeon, racer, and MotoAmerica Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Carl Price. Carl, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Really been looking forward to this one, and we now have a Guinness education to go along with it, which is a perfect lead-in for the first portion, which is called the first pour. And as you know, every good story starts with a drink, and so the first pour is all about cracking open whatever the guest picked and kind of talking about it a little bit. And so we have a Guinness here, which was your choice. Why did you choose Guinness? Sorry to do what waiters do when you get that sip.
No, it's all good. You said Guinness and it sounded good.
Yeah.
I think I really like a beer with a little bit of character.
Yeah.
And I'm old, and so I can't drink hard liquor anymore, or even wine much. So it doesn't have a whole lot of alcohol in it. I just love the taste. And the history of Guinness is very interesting. It's in 1759 or something like that is when it was formed. And when it was very popular in Ireland. And when Guinness started the brewery, he actually really took care of his workers. He had housing for them, he had medical care for them, they got sick, he paid for all that. So he really took care of his workers. So the whole story is very interesting too from that standpoint.
Especially for that time period too, 1750s. I mean,
100%, yeah.
That's definitely a rare thing.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I'm glad I bought extras because I'm probably going to have these at the house more often now. But you've got one of the more unusual paths of the people that we've had on the show so far. MotoAmerica Chief Medical Officer, surgeon, but also professional racer, which is crazy. You just did the Baja 1000 a few months ago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I know it might be a touchy subject, but you're in your 60s.
I am. I'll be 68 this year. I'm 67. So.
Right. Still racing against like 20-year-olds, which is...
Right. Still beating them.
Yeah, still beating them. Giving them an education one lap at a time.
Right.
So when people ask what you do, what do you say? Do you say, I'm a surgeon, I'm a racer, I'm in between?
It depends on the audience. But most of the time I tell them I'm both.
Okay.
And most of the time they look at me kind of funny, especially my medical colleagues, and they're like, what? Yeah. And first of all, I tell them, well, I suck at ball sports. I suck at golf. And so I've been riding motorcycles since I was 11 years old. I worked my way through college and medical school selling motorcycle parts. In high school, I worked in a motorcycle shop. And actually then when I went off to college, I did outside sales for them. Okay. And so it's been part of my life. I started racing when I was 13, started flat tracking and started motocrossing. Wow. And then actually road raced when I was in college. And had motorcycles all the way up through medical school, which I'll tell you an interesting story about that in a minute. Yeah. Through medical school and actually into my residency, my surgery residency. In my general surgery residency, the chief of surgery, hated motorcycles. Absolutely hated them. And
most medical professionals that find out that I ride motorcycles have the same reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Donor cycles, right, yeah. And so I would actually... When I would ride my motorcycle to work, I would have to hide it at the VA because the chief of surgery never went to the VA. And so I kind of kept that until once I got, my family started and stuff like that. I actually stopped riding motorcycles for about 10, 12 years. Okay. And then I was actually sitting in one of my partner's office. He was an internist, and he had all these pictures of dirt bikes up on the walls. And he was, I said, oh, that looks like fun. He used to ride dirt bikes. He said, oh, well, you ought to come with us. We ride dirt bikes in Colorado. And I said, okay. And that was kind of the entry drug again. So started riding dirt bikes, and then started riding street bikes, and then started racing again.
Okay. So do those worlds feel separate to you? And I know they're kind of blended together now, being the chief medical officer, but do you see them kind of separately as like the medical world where you're kind of observing the races versus the race world where you're participating in them? Or is it just kind of...
It's an interesting question. When I was very busy in my surgical practice, the motorcycle racing part of it was a way to completely separate from that.
Right. Kind of relax and
it just, when you're on the racetrack particularly, it takes so much focus, you don't really have any bandwidth for anything else. And so it's very cleansing to do that when you're totally focused on something. Now there is more of a blending between the two. And I still enjoy racing for the same reason. It's very cleansing. But it also gives me a little bit of cred with my riders. Because it's funny, I had a rider who was kind of all upset about something. He says, you don't know what it's like to be taken out in turn one. I do. And it's a story that, so I was racing about a year and a half ago in MotoAmerica in the Twins Cup at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, and I was on fire, and I was killing it. And I made a pass for the top 10, and guy took me out. I was a little upset, maybe. I may have questioned his lineage a little bit, or his relationship with his mother, as I went by and hit him on the helmet. Unfortunately, that was on TV, live national and international TV. So I got called into the principal's office to the stewards and got a hand slap. And actually, I'm probably the only chief medical officer in the world who has 2 penalty points with the organization they race with.
Don't get a third one.
No. That's right. You have to start at the back of the grid.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now they're a little more intertwined. When I was really in an active surgical practice, less so.
Yeah.
And so, people, it depends on who I was talking to. Most of my medical colleagues knew that I raced and thought it was interesting. Actually, I was on faculty at the University of Missouri. I still am on faculty, actually clinical faculty. And so we had medical students who would come around and rotate with us. And when they'd ask me if I played golf or something like that. I'm like, no, I raced motorcycles. And they thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So...
I feel like most people eventually get forced to pick, between a serious career and like their fun career or a hobby that's taking up more time than it should. And I feel like you've had the unique opportunity of blending both your passions together into one. And looking back now, did you ever think that it would kind of converge like this, or hope for it? Or?
No, not really. Actually, I never really thought I was going to be doing this job, this chief medical officer job. It was really, it's a totally different skill set than what I'm used to.
Right.
As a surgeon, I'm in charge.
Very controlled environment.
Very controlled environment. In the operating room, everything that happens is my responsibility, and I kind of control everything. Doing chief medical officer, I really have a lot of, it's a different skill set. I can't really tell people what to do. I have to kind of encourage them to do what I want them to do, or do the right thing, I should say. So it's a different skill set. So did I ever think I was going to do this? No. It was just one of those things that happened. The chief medical officer from MotoAmerica had an illness and actually passed, and so they didn't have a chief medical officer. And I was nearing the end of my surgical career. I said, I'll give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, they probably didn't have many racers that were surgeons on standby.
Correct. Yeah. There's a very small subset of us. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I want to get into our main segment, which we call Throttle Talk.
Okay.
And so now that we have something in our glasses to drink, which is delicious, by the way, I should have brought more than 4 cans, but I want to go all the way back to the beginning, and you kind of already touched on it, where you started racing at 12, but what is your first memory of a motorcycle?
So my first memory of a motorcycle is I grew up in Houston, Texas, And the neighborhood I grew up in at that point was on the outskirts of Houston, and there's bayous in Houston. And there's one bayou in particular called Bray's Bayou that they had done a flood control on, where they'd kind of excavated it and cemented it almost like the LA River kind of thing. And they piled all the dirt up on the side. So there were hills, which is there aren't many hills in Houston.
Yeah. Or in Texas in general.
Texas in general, right. Well, the hill country is different. But, all these guys would ride their motorcycle there. And so I would ride my bicycle down and watch them ride their motorcycle when I was probably 10 years old. And it just lit a fire with me. And so I absolutely just bugged my parents till they got me this little mini bike, and it was a total piece of shit. It broke all the time, but I learned how to work on things, but it never ran. It was the only motorcycle they ever bought me. So after that, I mowed lawns. I actually used to ride my bicycle to a service station about 10 miles away, a gas station at that point. And at that point, they didn't have self-serve, so I pumped the gas. And so I would work the evening shift at that and ride my bicycle home at night. And that's how I bought my first motocross bike, with that job. So then I started, I'd be riding down at I would literally, in the summertime, I would leave in the morning and I would ride all day long, because you could ride up and down the bayou too for miles and miles and miles. You go all the way down to the ship channel on the Bray's Bayou in Houston. And so I would ride all day long, dusk and dark, dawn until dusk. So that's kind of how I got started with it.
Yeah.
Those are my first memories of it.
And at what point did motorcycles stop being kind of like a hobby and something fun and start shifting more into becoming part of your identity? Obviously, you started doing it all day long in the summers, but was it when you got into racing or?
Well, first of all, it's always been fun.
Yeah, always will be.
Always will be fun. And it was probably in that era, kind of in high school, because I at that point I started working in a motorcycle shop. Actually, surprisingly, I was a 15-year-old mechanic in a motorcycle shop, which was interesting stories from that. But anyway, I won't go into those. But and then actually went to work for a dealership called Cycle Shack in Houston, which was one of the original Husqvarna dealers of the country, which is a motocross bike. And he had a wholesale warehouse that I would work at during the week after school, and then on Saturdays I'd work in the retail store. And then when I went off to college, I started doing outside sales for his wholesale place to dealers. So I would drive around to dealers in Central Texas, selling motorcycle parts. So once again, in that time, high school, it was just kind of part of my identity. It's kind of who it was.
Yeah. And then from there, you kind of went into the race circuit.
Yes.
Amateur race circuit at
first.
But...
I was amateur racing. I mean, I started racing when I was 13, flat track racing, and then started motocrossing. And then when I went off to college, I bought a street bike. And at that point in Austin, Texas, they had something called Aquafest, which you actually raced through the streets of Austin.
That sounds awesome.
It was pretty cool. And so I did Aquafest on my little RD400 Yamaha. So I started road racing and then bought a Honda 750 and started road racing that through college.
Is there a moment from your first race that you remember, or one of your first races, where it kind of clicked of like, wow, this is what I want to be doing?
Gosh, I don't recall a moment. I guess there was a moment where in high school, my next door neighbor had a little motorcycle that we built together, and they had a national mini bike race in Houston, and somehow I talked him into letting me race it, and I got like first or second, I can't remember. So that was probably the moment where it clicked with me.
Yeah.
You know, to be quite honest, I have a little bit too much of a heightened sense of self-preservation to be a great racer. Yeah. But like I said, I have some skills. So.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a combo of having those skills, but also having the ability to push the wire like that. And I think racers are wired a little differently. I mean, I ride every day if I can, and I push the envelope a little bit, but by no means am I like riding dangerously or like really pushing it. Do you think racers are wired different? Do you think there's something just that it like kind of that racing reveals about somebody, or you've been doing it for so long and maybe the surgical outlook on it?
You know, it's interesting. Yeah, probably. And it's funny because I when I got back into riding again, like I said, you know, after my hiatus for residency and child raising years, I started riding on the street again. Is where I started, and it was fun. And then I did a track day, and I was like, oh, it's a totally different thrill. And the more track days I did, the less I rode on the street.
Yeah.
And so
I've heard that's a common thing too.
It's and that's part of it is the thrill that you get from it is exponentially greater. And so it's, you know, I guess you get a tolerance for so street riding is not the same anymore.
It's funny. I just saw a video I think a couple days ago of on social media of a fighter pilot on a roller coaster, and he's just sitting there like deadpan, because to him it's not like flying a fighter jet, you know. And for us, like a normal person, it's like, oh, a roller coaster, it's a thrill, you know. The comparison, you know, I think it's probably something similar of, you know, going hair on fire down a track compared to, you know, going to a stop sign and then going to the next stop sign, you know. It's kind of different.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, several of over the years, people that I've raced against have been fighter pilots, and that's what they said. They said racing a motorcycle is as close as you can get to being a fighter pilot.
I'm gonna have to try it out. See, I'm always worried though, because I've never owned a sport bike. I had, like I said earlier, I had an Indian FTR, which is a fantastic bike, and a lot of people use them on the track. But I don't think I would trust myself to have a sport bike on the street. I think I would love to have like a nice track bike that I would take to the track. But
you need to do a track day. It's like, it's the entry drug, I'm just saying.
Yeah, see, my wife's going to hate this, because I'm going to go home and be like, Carl said I should do a track day. She's already trying to keep me down to 2 motorcycles at one time.
Yeah, no, you can't have too many motorcycles.
That's what I keep telling her.
But so once you do a track day, it's a different deal.
Yeah. So you've got a different perspective than most racers because you're a surgeon. You have a different perspective than most surgeons because you're a racer. Do you think being a surgeon has changed the way you race, and do you think being a racer has changed the way that you perform surgery in any way?
That's a good question. As a surgeon, I always like to say you're never in doubt and seldom wrong, because you have to make decisions like that. And sometimes I'm very limited information. The most dangerous surgeons are the ones who hesitate, frankly, who are not hesitate, but who are tentative. And so I think racing is similar in that you have to make really split-second decisions, and you know, every once in a while you may be wrong, you may crash, but so I think they're similar in that way. So did racing make me a better surgeon, or did surgery make me a better racer? I think probably surgery made me a better racer because I am a little more perhaps precise and a little more analytical. Frankly, that's probably why I'm not quite as good a racer, because I'm probably too analytical. Having said that, in the rain, I love to race in the rain. And I actually do pretty well in the rain. I mean, to kind of brag. So
this is the place to do it.
I know, right?
It's on
exactly.
camera.
It's on camera. So I raced in the Italian National Championship about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And on a spec bike, it was on the Aprilia 660, which is a great bike. And we were at Mugello, which is the most amazing track ever. My best day ever on a motorcycle was at Mugello. It's in Tuscany. It's a beautiful track. And I qualified like shit. I was like 20th on the grid or something, 16th on the grid. I think it was 20th on the grid out of 24 or something for the race, but it rained. And the team owner had said, Carl, if you get on the podium, I'll take off my clothes and I'll run naked through the paddock. I'm like, dude, you're on. He had no idea that I was good in the rain. So after 2 laps, I was like in I don't know, 10th place. And I ended up, I think I got 7th or something like that. I was the top finisher on the team. And if we would have had, they cut the race short a little bit. If I would have had another 2 laps, I would have been on the podium. And so he gave me the nearly naked trophy, which was the base of the trophy without the top on it.
Yeah.
So it's a long way of saying I'm a lot more analytical when I race, when I run around. And so in the rain, I do pretty good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You said earlier that being a surgeon kind of changed the way that you look, like being analytical and forcing you to make decisions with very limited information. I think that's something that a lot of motorcycle riders can identify with. It's reactions and reading ahead and being able to predict things, but first and foremost, just making a call and making that decision, and that kind of tied over. And I think in my career, being in the Navy, kind of made me a better rider. I was on ships for a long time, and whenever I was training the new officers that were coming up, I'd always tell them, there's a time limit for everything. There's triggers to notify the captain. There's triggers to notify engineering or the combat information center. All this different stuff. There's always timelines for everything, and there's split-second things that can save a ship from being in a collision. And I always tell them, if you're in that scenario where you need to take action, doing something that is even a little bit right is way better than doing nothing, because just putting the rudder over might be 30% correct. It might not be the correct angle, may not be the correct speed, it may not be the correct anything, but it's 100% better than doing nothing. And I think that bleeds in a lot to motorcycle riding and racing, especially of if you just take that action, it's a lot easier to correct something that's kind of on course than being completely off the track.
Well, it's the most common crash on the street is people run off.
Yeah.
They run straight because they don't do anything.
Right. They just lock up, they freeze.
Yeah, they freeze and they run off. And so the right thing is to do something.
Do something.
Yeah.
Do anything.
It's funny. It's very similar in surgery. When I mentioned a moment ago about surgeons who are tentative, those surgeons who don't do anything. I had an attending one time, and there was one of the residents that was a couple of years ahead of me was very tentative, and the attending just started screaming at him. Do something even if it's wrong.
Yeah. I've had a similar experience on ships.
Yeah, right.
Captain yelling at a higher ranking person than me, do something.
Do something. Do something. Don't just sit there. Don't deer in the headlights. Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, getting back on track here.
Yeah, sorry.
So we're sitting here overlooking Laguna Seca, which is just an awesome track and an awesome place to be. And even if somebody's never raced before or even been to a track, there's something different feeling about being at a track. I always have such a great time when I come here, not because of I guess probably because of the races, but not simply because of that, but like the environment of the track and what the track is itself. But you have a unique look at it because you see not only what's on the track but behind the scenes as well as the chief medical officer. So what does a place like Laguna Seca or another track like this feel to you now? Does it feel different kind of being on that executive side of that kind?
A little bit. You kind of see how the sausage is made, as it were. And so you kind of, you know where the bodies are buried. But
right over there.
But, and there is a difference, between tracks. And Laguna is certainly one of the better ones. They've got, good management, good infrastructure, good policies and good procedures in place and everything. Great locations. Yeah. It's iconic. I mean, truly stunning location. And so, and there are some tracks that are less so. It does give me a little bit different perspective. When I first came to Laguna Seca, just a long time ago, 99, 98, it's the first time I came here. With my son, we used to come here for the World Superbike races. I had a different perspective on it than I do now, certainly. Same with other tracks, but so absolutely. Being on this side of it, it doesn't lessen the romance of it, though, to be honest. As I mentioned, a track like this, or I mentioned Mugello. I mean, you walk into Mugello and it just takes your breath away. You walk into this place and it kind of takes your breath away, just everything about it.
My first time here was last year for the King of the Bagger races, and I came in on that little side entrance, and you kind of come over this hill. It's the first time I'd ever been to like a real racetrack, and they were doing, I think they were doing practice laps at the time, and you could hear it. I had my cardo on in my helmet. I had my loud, Indian Sport Chief bike, and you can hear them. And the second I came over the hill, I like snapped over. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And they were just ripping around the track. And I was like, this is completely different than anything I was ever used to. And what's cool is like, I was with the Indian demo team over there. And so you park in the middle of the track and they're racing around you. Yeah. And I had never seen anything like that. And I went over to the fence. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, is they're just blasting past. And you're like, oh, that is so much louder than I was expecting.
And it's interesting because if you stand back a little bit and you see it go around, it's really cool. But then like you're on the wall.
Yeah.
Kind of the wall experience when they go by, when the superbikes go by at 180 miles an hour. You can't
even like track it with your eyes.
It just shivers down your spine. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you still get the same itch to ride? Like right now, we're at a track. Do you, even like a cold track on a day that you're not racing, when you come to the track, do you still get that same itch and same desire to race?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a bum knee and I had to have some knee surgery, and one of the reasons I did it is because I did a track day at Barber a couple months ago, and Barber's a right-handed track. It's a beautiful track too if you've never been there. It's like the Augusta of motorcycle tracks. It's landscaped. It's got sculptures everywhere. It's really beautiful, but it's mostly a right-handed track. And I couldn't get my right knee out. I'm like, okay, this is it. I got to get my knee done.
Yeah. So I want to transition a little bit away from the racing aspect and kind of talk more about the medical aspect for you. So as I said before, you're not just another racer in the paddock. You're a surgeon, and plastic surgeon by trade. But primarily, you're the person that is responsible for the safety, or at least like the triage and response to a rider that gets injured here. Not necessarily the safety, I guess that's the safety officer of the track, but as a chief medical officer, it's kind of a different pressure than racing. How did the MotoAmerica chief medical officer role kind of come into being? I know you said that the previous one passed from an illness. Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
A little of both.
Okay.
A little of both. As chief medical officer, I essentially kind of coordinate the medical services at the track. And so I've reached around, I create a medical plan that has what hospitals we're going to send people to, how many ambulances we have, where the ambulances are going to be stationed, what other medical assets we have on site. And then I also have a sports medicine clinic that we staff with a physical therapist and chiropractor and those kinds of things. And so I kind of coordinate all of that, making sure that all those pieces are in place. So administratively, I do those kinds of things. And actually this year, I'd mentioned to you, I believe, I've started visiting the hospitals that are our referral hospitals, which has been really enlightening in a lot of ways. And really helpful because I then have a personal connection. So I have somebody I can call and say, okay, I got this guy that needs this or that. I also do kind of respond on the track to major medical incidents.
That was going to be my follow-up, is it different on a race day or a race weekend? Instead of managing and kind of putting things in place, are you hands-on?
Yeah, I'm a little more hands-on, and part of that is just my preference. There are some chief medical officers who just sit up and race control the whole time, which is not incorrect, and let the people on the ground kind of handle things. I prefer to have a little more hands-on, as I mentioned a moment ago. Never in doubt, seldom wrong.
Sensing a theme.
And so I'll oftentimes, if there's a major incident, respond on the track to kind of help coordinate what's going on there, whether it's evaluating the rider to see if they need to be sent off, or most of the time my preference is we'll take the rider and maybe in the ambulance and take them over to the infield care center or the medical center and evaluate them to hopefully kind of help get a little bit better idea of what's going on with them, to kind of either down code them when we send them to the hospital or get more appropriately triage them. So I do some patient care. Interestingly also, for the paddock, for all the mechanics and crew and all that kind of stuff, and all the MotoAmerica staff, I kind of have primary care too. So I do a lot of primary care too, so, which has been, remembering stuff from way back in medical school.
Yeah. I think, when fans that are either watching at the track or on TV, they see a crash, it's kind of like a short experience for the viewers. They see the crash, kind of, the camera's on them for a second, they kind of get removed, and then they're gone, and then the broadcast goes on or the race goes on, and that's kind of the only view that we have of what's going on. But I guess I never really thought about like what happens after that. So when a crash happens and you respond to it, what is that experience like, or what's like the first thing you're looking for? Probably, obviously, major breaks, neck, back, stuff like that.
Yeah, generally speaking, when I respond on the track, and it's different than a motorcycle crash on the street. All of our athletes have all the gear on all the time. So they're wearing leathers, they have airbag suits in, which is a huge advance. We actually published a paper on that shows that the airbag suits really decrease ambulance transfers and major injuries. So I evaluate them to kind of see if there's something that needs immediate transfer. So, broken neck or something like that. If I don't see that, then we'll oftentimes, once again, kind of get them over and evaluate them a little bit closer to see exactly what's going on. If they do have a broken bone somewhere, or a lot of times they may not have had anything other than perhaps a concussion. One of the things that I've done actually that I'm pretty proud of is that we're the first sporting organization in the world that has a blood test for concussion. It was actually developed by the military. They now have them out at 250 of these out in 4 medical units. Huh. And it's a whole blood test. You draw blood and it measures these biomarkers for concussion.
What does it, just like the brain release a chemical or something, or the body release a chemical?
Kind of, sort of. I'll go into the weeds for a minute.
I'm not a doctor, but somebody probably wants to know.
So it was actually developed by the military and Abbott Labs, and you're measuring 2 biomarkers. One of them is GFAP associated with glial cells, one of the astrocytes, or one of the types of cells in the brain, and the other is associated with neurons. You really shouldn't find those in any appreciable levels in the peripheral blood unless the brain is damaged. If the brain is damaged, these are released into the blood. The analogy I use is that of an egg. You have an egg with everything inside the egg. The egg's broken, that shit leaks out. Yeah. And so if the brain cells are damaged, this stuff leaks into the peripheral blood. And the blood-brain barrier actually increased permeability right after trauma. But anyway, so it's really been a game changer for me. It's till now with this blood test, concussion has been a clinical diagnosis, and it's been based on symptoms a lot of times, that are self-reported by someone whose brain's damaged. So inherently, it's not very accurate, And so other sporting organizations do a baseline test, impact testing is what it's called, where they'll, questions and stuff, and that's what the black tent's all about on the sidelines. Yeah, that kind of stuff, which is really not that accurate because a lot of it's based on intellect, and so obviously intellects are different. Yeah,
and probably severity of concussion too. I imagine if you have a minor concussion, you're going to be able to see relatively well, and you might have a headache, but it's like, yeah, of course I have a headache, I just banged my head. Right. If it's a bad concussion where you're like severely concussed, maybe
even that, in the past, someone may have had a headache, and I'm like, you had a little block on the head, but now I can test it, and I say, okay, your biomarkers are up, you've had a concussion. And so it helps you kind of counsel the rider and say, these are the steps you need to do to kind of recover from your concussion. And oh, by the way, you can't race this weekend because there's something called
exactly what they want to hear.
Well, that's right. Well, that's the other thing is that it gives you something objective. Right. In the past, I said, okay, you have a concussion, and you're like, no, my CT's normal. Mm-hmm. Well, CT doesn't tell you you have a concussion or not; it tells you don't have a brain bleed. But this way, I have something that I can show them that's objective.
Right.
So anyway, so that's kind of some of the things that happen behind the scenes. So when they go over to the care center, those are the kinds of things we're doing.
Random follow-up question to that, just because I'm curious. Is this being used like widespread commercially at hospitals around the country or around the world to test for concussion?
Slowly getting out. It was just released, approved by the FDA in April of 24.
Wow, okay, so very recently.
very recently, is the whole blood test. And as approved by the FDA, it is used to determine whether a CT scan is necessary or not. Everybody gets a CT scan and has a concussion, but most of those, 94% of the time, they're negative. So this helps differentiate people who don't. I use it kind of off-label for that diagnosis piece of things, because I have people come in with very vague symptoms. I had a rider who crashed, who got back up, finished the race, came in and said, I've never had a concussion before. I said, well, go get your helmet and bring it to me. And he brings his helmet back. His helmet doesn't look too bad. He said, the lights were really bright in my trailer. Photophobia is one of the signs of concussion. So I tested him, sure enough, it was positive.
Wow.
He had a concussion. I would have missed that in the past.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a game changer. So is it widely used? Not yet. Like I said, the military now has it part of their concussion protocol, and all the Ford medical units. Like I said, I think they have 250. And the military, it takes a little while to get things out there.
Yes, it does.
So it's still working its way through the chain, I think. But it's slowly kind of finding its place, and I'm somewhat evangelical about this, as you can tell, and part of it comes from personal experience. I mean, I had a really bad crash in MotoAmerica in Washington, I don't know, 4 years ago, so much so that I had double vision. I was knocked out. They did all the concussion testing on me, it's called SCAT testing. They did all the SCAT testing. They did oculomotor goggles. They looked at my eyes, passed it all. And I was concussed.
Yeah.
So, this should be at every sideline in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's is it a rapid
15
test?
minutes. It's amazing. You draw blood, you put a drop of blood on a chip, and you plug it into a computer, and it gives you an answer in 15 minutes.
Is there a too soon to do it? Like they get concussed and then you immediately test and...
See, that's one of the interesting things about my data is we presented this actually at a neurotrauma conference in Milwaukee about 3 weeks ago, a national neurotrauma conference, for our data from 2025. All the data for the FDA approval was done in ERs. And so those people were seen 3-6 hours out. Yeah. I'm seeing people 20 minutes out.
Yeah.
And of course, the military is very interested in this because, for medical units. So the one that's associated with neurons, UCHL1, rises immediately.
Wow.
And so can you do it too soon? No.
That's crazy. All right. Well, I imagine...
Sorry to get up on that tangent.
No, that was me that kind of...
like I said, I'm evangelical about it. I think that it's... concussion is lagging behind everything else. This blood test is somewhat like now when you have a heart condition, you get a blood test, it tells you whether you have a heart attack or not, right? This is going to be like that.
Wow, that's crazy. I'd imagine one of the hardest conversations in your job is telling a racer that they can't get back on their bike or they can't keep going for that race, especially if they're doing well or... they really don't want to hear that. But I feel like you lend credibility to it as a rider. But now this, something like a measurable concussion test, also it's this is hard data,
Yeah, well, I had a rider who had concussion and went and got a CT scan. It was normal. So he comes back and says, Carl, my CT is normal. Can I ride? No.
Right.
And then his crew chief comes in 20 minutes later, says, hey, can my rider ride? No. 20 minutes after that, the team owner calls me, former world champion. Hey, can the rider ride? No.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like that helps you so much because it takes the onus off of it being like an objective, you passed 3 of these symptoms, but you also have these other 2, so I'm going to say that you might have one, so you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Now it's just like a hard line, no, this is measurable, this is... it's provable.
Well, it is a hard conversation to have with the riders. I mean, they're passionate about it like I am, about wanting to get out there and race. But I always try to play to their better angels a little bit. I say, well, these guys are racing at 100 miles an hour this far apart from somebody. And I say, would you want to be racing against yourself?
Right.
And most of the time they kind of say, no, not really.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like that's what makes your role to me so interesting is that you're not evaluating them from a complete opposite side of the fence type thing. You're one of the riders that what it's like to be taken out of a race. You know what it's like to have these crashes and these things and not be able to continue even when you're doing well, trying to get some guy to run naked through the paddock,
Exactly.
And so I think that makes it such a perfect fit for you, but also just like a interesting perspective on this, just because it is almost like a match made in heaven,
it's worked out really well, and I have a great relationship with our riders, and so and I think that does help some. Because they know I'm not just trying to keep them out. I mean, I do everything I can to get them back in. That's why I have physical therapists and chiropractors and all these people kind of trying to get them back out there.
Yeah. And I feel like concussion protocol in general in sports has just been on such a big focus because it wasn't for so long, and it really damaged a lot of people in a lot of ways. And I think it's just incredible. Again, I kind of sidetracked us with it, but I think it's such a crazy application that we'll be able to be in football and in every sport, in the military, in hospitals, and
the ultimate goal is to be able to objectify the return to sport, because right now it's arbitrary.
Right.
So for the FIM, for our sanctioning organization, if you have a concussion, you're out for 10 days, period. That's kind of what the rules say. And that's probably pretty close, but there are some people that can return before that.
Right.
And there are certainly some people who should return way after that.
Yeah.
And so being able to have some sort of objective measure that you can then correlate with recovery will be huge. We're not there yet, but that's the ultimate goal, because
getting there, though.
Yeah, because every individual is different. One person may have a sprained ankle and can go back playing soccer in very short time, or someone else, it may take them a little bit longer. And so everyone's an individual, and let's just individualize that a little bit.
Now, are you able to test, like on the opposite end of the spectrum, when you test, will those two things that you were looking for in the blood, will they go away once your concussion is over?
Yeah, the test is just validated with the first 24 hours. So it doesn't really measure recovery.
Got it, okay.
We're doing a study in Chicago with a group where we're looking at the levels of those, the initial levels of those two biomarkers, and trying to correlate that with recovery. There are probably some other biomarkers that are going to be more important for measuring that recovery. Unclear at this point.
Interesting. It's funny, I have a script for every episode, and I had a whole concussion section that I was going to talk about, and so we just kind of led right into it.
That's cool.
Which is great.
Yeah. Concussion sport's a huge deal.
So if there was one thing, this is one of my final concussion questions, if you could get every racer to understand one thing about concussions, what would it be?
That it's concussion is we shouldn't use the word concussion. It is a traumatic brain injury, and like any injury, it has to heal. And so, we think, I just had a little concussion. No, you had a traumatic brain injury. Your brain was damaged, and it needs to heal. And I think that's probably the take-home message. And I'm trying to change my language. Obviously, I haven't done very good on this podcast, but that's where we need to be changing our language and not talk about concussion. We need to talk about mild traumatic brain injury, because that's what it is.
Yeah. On one of my deployments, I fell down a ladder well on the ship. Ladder well is just a dumb Navy term for a stairwell.
Right.
And we were over in this place and took a big swell, and it's pretty common, but I fell down, not like the whole thing, but probably the last 5 steps, and I really messed up my right ankle. And was limping for like 2 weeks, and that's what I was focused on the whole time. But when I went to medical right after it happened, they asked me a lot of stuff about concussions, and I was like, I don't think I'm concussed. I was like, I can see straight. And, that was like, as a former athlete, that was like my only thing. It was like, well, I can see how many fingers you're holding up. Yeah. I don't have a headache, and the lights aren't bright, so I think I'm fine. And then it was like 3 days later, I went back into the doctor, and I was like, Doc, it was really weird. I was like, I remember being in my rack, which was our bed, and I was like, and I sat up, and I remember trying to remember something, and it was like I was dreaming, but I wasn't. And he was like, huh. So do you think it had anything to do with you falling down the stairs the other day? And I was like, maybe, but I didn't really focus on that. I was focused on my ankle because it really hurt.
Right.
But then I would go up to the bridge of the ship and be trying to do math and drive a ship and all this different stuff. And I was like, man, I am so tired. I can't even remember how to do these equations that I'm supposed to know how to do, the back of my hand. And I was like, and it never really occurred to me to think about that. of like,
well, and
maybe.
and that's one of the things that that we've done in the past is that we've missed so many of these milder traumatic brain injuries, and therefore we aren't able to counsel patients about the sequelae, which is exactly what you were experiencing, those kind of brain fog kind of things, not thinking straight, not sleeping, depression, even anxiety.
That's just normal in the military.
Yeah, true. Anxiety attacks, all those kinds of things that I used to think, oh, that's just a bunch of hooey. Yeah. Those are all sequelae of concussion sometimes.
Interesting.
That you can have those things. I mean, after my last really bad concussion, first of all, I had personality changes for a while. I mean, I was an asshole.
So you haven't been like this the whole time?
Yeah, that's right. I haven't always been an asshole. But I mean, it would be weird because I would just go off, and in the back of my head, I'm going like, no, why are you going off on this? This is stupid. But it was weird. Yeah. So anyway, I think that we probably do underdiagnose it. Like I said, part of it's distracting injuries. You have another injury, that's the last thing you think about because it's like, okay, my ankle's hurting.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So I feel like the whole labeling it a TBI, especially like in the military, that has such a connotation to me of when somebody has a TBI in the military, it's like an IED went off next to them and they have like a legitimate severe TBI, and I feel like that would be a barrier, at least in military terms, of labeling that. But I feel like this research would be incredible to have in like forward trauma units or like on ships. What I'm used to, we don't have like an actual medical staff on a small ship like a destroyer. We have typically it's an HM1 or an HMC, so a chief or a senior enlisted guy that has a lot of medical training but is not a doctor. Doctors are only on like aircraft carriers, and so if it's like a real severe thing like a broken leg, you'd have to fly over to the aircraft carrier to get it actually treated. And I feel like having something that you could do a prick your finger, do the dot, and know that you have a concussion, and be able to be like, okay, well,
you need to go rest, right?
Right, you should be off watch for a couple of days, and let's make sure that you're okay, and actually have the ability to know that somebody has a concussion instead of somebody being like, I'm totally fine, put me back in the watch bill, like let me go back, keep doing my thing. I think would be a huge benefit.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why the military spent all the money developing it, is that exact reason, so they could do that, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And also, the CT piece of it is important for the military too, and that obviously you don't want to evacuate someone from a forward medical unit because you take assets off the field, not only the person you're evacuating, but all the other people are taken off the field too. Yeah. So. All
right. Well, before we wrap this right up, I want to slow things down for our final pour. It's the last section we have for you, and one of our friends, Peter Lago, he owns Johnny's Bar and Grill out in Hollister, kind of made it a tradition where we pour a little bit left, and luckily
we have some left.
A little bit left to add into our highball glasses that are not Guinness approved, but that's okay. There we go. That's the plastic thing there. Honestly, Guinness feels perfect for this episode. Straightforward, smooth, strong, and so for the final pour, I kind of want to, talk about more serious things. Looking back over everything in your life and your career, racing, medicine, MotoAmerica, surgery, what are you most grateful for?
My kids. I have 3 wonderful kids. I have identical twin daughters.
Wow.
And ironically, I married an identical twin. My wife's an identical twin.
Well, it runs in the family,
actually,
right?
Identical twins are a chance happenstance. Fraternal twins are hereditary.
Interesting.
And then I have a son. My oldest is my son. My son is a school teacher and a swim coach, so he's shaping young minds. My one daughter she's gone to the dark side. She's a hospital administrator. And then my other daughter, who lives in the UK, works for an AI company.
Wow.
So, and
full spectrum.
They are. And I'm very grateful that they're decent human beings. That's all you can leave in this world is decent human beings.
I agree. What has
I'm grateful for my wife too, because I couldn't have done it without her.
Add that in.
Kathy, it's all good.
What has motorcycle racing taught you about people, and conversely, what has medicine and surgery and being a doctor taught you about people that racing couldn't?
Good questions. First of all, I wouldn't be where I am without motorcycles. It kept me out of trouble. Some of the best people I've ever met have been motorcycle people that helped me along the way, whether it was the guy who gave me the job at Cycle Shack, Richard Sanders, who God rest his soul, a guy named Denny Turnbull, who also helped me a huge amount. Actually, Richard Sanders actually lent me his race band for my high school prom. I mean, motorcycles, like I said, the best people I know are motorcycle people. Yeah. And it's amazing, all walks of life. But it's taught me that people are decent.
Yeah. I think something that kind of ties the military world to the motorcycle world, because those converge quite often, is just, it's such a weird cross-section of America, just such a strange group of people from everywhere. You know, motorcycles, everybody does it. Surgeons,
right.
Military members, our cameraman Chaz, he's a school teacher.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You could not have a job. You could have, you could be a surgeon. You could have whatever walk of life, background, religious belief, whatever. Everything that ties you together is the machine and the belief in that machine. And
it's a good analogy for our country, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we're bringing all these different people together in one place.
This weird social experiment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So what has medicine taught me?
Yeah.
It's value hard work. I mean, when I was a surgery resident, I was on call every other day for 3 years. So I'd go to the hospital at 6 a.m. and I'd get home the next day at 8 p.m, and I'd do it again. And so, success in life is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. And so it's taught me hard work.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds like a lot of hard work. I don't know if I want to do that. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 6 years of general surgery training, 2 years of plastic surgery training.
That's wild. Yeah. You spent a lot of your time around speed, risk, crashes, recovery, people trying to come back from bad days, and you kind of see the bad parts, which may be hopeful at times and actually end up being good parts. Has that changed the way that you think about your own life outside the track?
Yes and no. I've always been kind of a in the moment kind of guy, mm-hmm. And so and I mean life is short, which is why I'm still racing at 67 years old, because I might not make it to 68.
Yeah.
So has it changed? I mean, I've always kind of had that philosophy, I think. Yeah. So. It's like I said, life's short. You gotta live every day.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you deal with the emotional side of being typically the first person or one of the first people that somebody sees when they're going through like a life-changing event?
I try to be a calming, influence on that. That's why I like to respond on the track, because I like my athletes to know, just like when I was a surgeon, I like my patients to know that I'm there for them and that they're going to be okay, and we're going to do everything we can to make it okay. And I think whenever you have an injury like that or an illness, I think that's the hardest part, is because you're scared. And so having somebody there to kind of kneel down, tell you you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we got you. It's like you guys in the military. I mean, when your buddy's injured, you're right next to him. So I got you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final question for you.
Okay.
If this moment right now was your last ride before sunset, what would you want to say to the people who've been part of your journey, your family, patients, riders, the paddock, motorcycle world?
It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah. Might be the best answer we've gotten so far to that question. Well, I really appreciate your answers and this conversation. I know we've been trying to set it up for a while. And
no, it's just been great fun. Yeah, great fun.
But I think this has been probably one of the more enlightening ones that we've done, of kind of getting that full 360 perspective of the rider, the medical side, the chief medical officer side, and kind of that well-rounded, years of experience on both sides of it, which has been.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Kind of interesting how diverse the motorcycle community can be, but we're all still part of the same family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something worth raising a glass to.
Absolutely, sir.
Cheers to you and the motorcycle world.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, cool.
Well, one last thing.
Okay.
The microphone is yours. Are you working on anything right now? Do you have anything to announce? Any studies, any races, any projects of any kind?
No, we're going to be presenting our concussion stuff at the in Geneva at the FIM medical conference in February. We're actually publishing our stuff. We presented it already, but we're publishing our stuff on the airbag suits. I'm working with the University of Texas on that. Other things to announce. I do want to announce that MotoAmerica is going to be at Mid-Ohio, July 31st through August 2nd. And Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is a great track. It's a great event. It's one of our bigger events, so I invite everybody to come out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably won't be out in time, but Laguna Seca.
Laguna Seca this weekend. Yeah, come this weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this ride. Huge thank you, sir, for sitting down with us and taking the time out of your busy schedule. And I know the prep for this weekend is probably a lot for you, and we really appreciate it. But until next time, ride safe, drink slow, and we'll see you on the next episode of Throttles and Bottles. Thank you to the sponsors of today's episode. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this, and we look forward to having more.